in case I miss the people waiting in the lobby, to one of our team just let people in as they keep coming. So, yeah, as you're all aware, and signing up today is an opportunity for you all to learn more about the Milo Mission Academy for Lunar Exploration. Firstly, do want to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands in which we all meet today, both across Australia and internationally. I'm on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. My name is Michelle Keegan, and I'm the Director for Resources and Space here at Arose. I'm really excited to be able to host this webinar. It's one of a few, and we continue to get more and more interest from across the Australian space and other industries right now. So great to see the excitement that's happening, but also great to be here in the company of the Milo Institute team and the Australian Space Agency and Kerry. Together, we are all focused on making space accessible to all. And so bringing this opportunity of the Mission Academy to Australia and New Zealand and Singapore, we've got a few students from there as well signed up. We think that this 12-week virtual internship available to anyone over 18 at TAFE or university and up to 10 years post-graduating is a great way to both learn more and think about, where this could take you across many industries. A quick overview of Arose, and we're partnering with the Milo Institute to be able to bring this academy to you, is that, we're a industry-led member-based organisation. We have a national focus, and we were established to catalyse the knowledge transfer between Earth and space. The other key thing that's important to us is about advocating and building national capability and developing the future skills and workforce. And hence, this is why the Mission Academy really aligns well with our strategy. The other point I should make is Arose was one of the consortiums that the Australian Space Agency has provided a grant to for starting to design Australia's first lunar rover. But just as a bit of an update, this is actually out of date. We have great support from the Australian Space Agency in providing up to 60 places with financial support in this academy. We have iLaunch, we're providing up to 20 places. SmartSat CRC are also offering 20 places. Swinburne, Monash and Space Faculty are all providing places to help support students across their universities. We launched this academy back in October of last year, making this available, as I said, across Australia and New Zealand. And there are other people from other locations such as Singapore that have signed up. We actually have over 190 registrations to date, and despite the update that I have missed in the timeline to the top left of this, we are continuing to accept registrations. The first academy kicks off on the 21st of March. That's all I have to say, and I wanted to now hand over to Kerry Doherty from the Australian Space Agency to give you some more background of where this could take you. Did you want me to share your slides, or do you want to share?
Well, let me see if I can share. We'll see if we're going to have the windows working today. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to get it to. There we go. Okay, we all set. You can see that now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Look, thank you everybody for expressing interest in potentially becoming part of the Milo Space Academy. This is a really worthwhile program that we think if you are planning to or looking towards a potential career in the Australian space sector, this can be a really good way to help you get started. Now, today I just want to give you a few sort of insights into the Australian space workforce and the kinds of areas that we expect to have requirements for people in the coming years. The Australian Space Agency, for those of you not familiar with it, is that we really are the sort of central heart of civil space here in Australia. We coordinate across government with industry and academia to advance Australia's position in the global space economy. Now, through this, we actually provide funding opportunities, like we're providing for the Milo program. We provide technical expertise and direction to government as well as international engagement with partners across the world. We provide policy advice to government. We're responsible for regulating Australian space activities, and we also through our Inspire program, work to provide initiatives to inspire the nation and to help build our future Australian workforce. Now, currently, the Australian government's goal is to bring 1.2 million tech jobs into existence by 2030. And as part of the overall this overall growth, the Australian space sector actually needs quite a broad range of skills, so that we can grow and be part of the international space economy. So, for example, there's a very big requirement for technical skills, particularly in the engineering, design, software and programming areas, cyber, and quite a range of the AI areas as well. We also need operational skills. As you can see there, data analysis, navigation, satellite control, remote operations. These are all areas that we need people trained and qualified in. Support skills. People often don't think about some of these softer skills. Everything from visualization and communication, management, law, and so on. Soft skills like teamwork and collaboration. And this is a really important aspect of the Milo program, that it will give you good hands-on experience in working with mixed teams of people you may not have worked with before, in collaborating with people, getting involved in decision making and problem solving. There's also those other downstream skills that we need too, like people who understand data science and how to utilize data to provide new insights, people with skills in that AI and machine learning area, image processing, and so on. Now, at the moment, Australia does have some strengths that you may not be aware of in areas like autonomous robotics and remote sensing, as well as astronomy and astrophysics research. But we have quite a number of shortages in these areas that I've just talked about. Now, research that's been done by SmartSat CRC and others indicates that in the coming years, there's going to be quite a big requirement for people with VET or TAFE-based trade skills. So, and that we're expecting that to grow more than 12-fold. Now, in fact, the research has actually identified that there's 106 new skill areas that we need in the space sector. And so that's actually a 176% increase above the skills that are currently represented through in the space sector. So university-based skill requirements are also expected to increase by about 2.5 times, and they've identified 28 new skill areas that are going to be required again in the space sector. So some of these prime areas of skill shortage include engineers, and that's engineering qualifications across the board: space systems, electrical engineering, electronics, avionics, people in the mechanical propulsion engineering, computer hardware, software, robotics. There's a lot of requirements for people with scientific qualifications in the areas listed here, including atmospheric and space science, planetary sciences, propulsion sciences, astrophysics, Earth observation, and so on. IT and data specialists, again, a big growth area, particularly in the areas of cybersecurity. And it might surprise you, perhaps, game developers, but these are areas that are very relevant to simulations for training astronauts, for example. And very much we have skill shortages in these technical trade and technicians areas, again, particularly in the electrical and avionics areas, automation, assembly, and sort of engineering technologists. So a few more workforce insights: that the highest demand at the moment for trade qualifications are in the manufacturing area. Some of these include robotics, electronics, I've already mentioned, communications engineering, computer systems engineering. Now, and these capabilities, they're not just useful in the space sector, also they're relevant, obviously, for the broader aviation and aerospace sector and in the defence industries. Similarly, the university qualified skills with the current highest demand are in systems engineering, project management, and a variety of software skills. And again, these are, of course, transferable to many other areas, including the mining and resources sector and the defence sector. So if you are interested, the agency has a variety of careers in space resources that are available, particularly for the perhaps some of the younger people on this call. And you can visit our space.gov.au website to access those. So that'll just give you a little bit of an idea of some of the areas that could be opening up, or we believe will open up in the space sector in the future. And the Milo Academy, by giving you this hands-on experience in space mission design and development, can really help you get a feel for where the where you might ultimately be going in a future space career in Australia. So I'll hand back to Michelle on that.
Okay, thanks, Kerry. It's always important to think about where this could take you. Have just put something in the chat there. If you've got any questions that you think of during these presentations, feel free to add them, and you can either speak up or we'll answer them in the chat as we go. Did you want me to share your slides, Sherry, or do you want to?
David, it's up to you.
Yeah, so Michelle, I'll make a quick introduction to Sherry's slides, and
go ahead and
we can share them. Go ahead and share them. So I'll first welcome everybody to the webinar. We really appreciate you spending your time with us, and I think it's really fascinating the level of interest in space, and there's a good reason. We're at this amazing inflection point. If you think about the infrastructure, for example, that is going to be built on the moon for Artemis, NASA and corporate entities are going to be building things like fuel depots and solar panels for energy and communicating satellites that are going to be around the moon. All of that infrastructure is going to be accessible as a service. So that means that there are opportunities for new business models, new ways of doing space science on the moon as part of or leveraging the Artemis program, of which, and of course, Australia is one of the signatories to the Artemis Accords. And so you have this connection to what's happening on the moon. There are going to be 10 missions to the moon this year alone, and that's going to increase over the next few years, with humans returning in about 5 or 6 years. So this is an extraordinary time to be thinking about engaging in space. I mean, you look at launch costs. The launch cost of the Artemis 1 mission was over $150,000 per kilogram, and that's been reduced by a couple of orders of magnitude by Falcon 9. That's about a couple of $1,000 US per kilogram. And when Starship goes up, now we're looking at about $200 per kilogram for payloads to be put into space. Business models that were not feasible just a year or two ago are now feasible. You have the opportunity in your career to participate in this extraordinary sea change that's occurring, this inflection point that is space. And I have to agree with Kerry, there's so many different ways you can participate. I was in a meeting last week, and there was a gentleman from the Italian embassy in the US who reminded all of us that the clothing company Prada has signed an agreement with Axiom to contribute to the next spacesuit designs. So now we have opportunities for fashion, as well as the science and the engineering. There's extraordinary opportunities. If you're going to get into human medicine, think about the fact that a person on the moon is 3 days away from an emergency room. So how do you predict something that may happen more effectively, more accurately? We're now looking at genetic research in low Earth orbit. There's so many opportunities. What I love about what Sherry's going to show you is the access. All of this cool new stuff that's occurring in your lifetime. She has created a program with the team that is creating access to everyone. You don't have to have prerequisites. You don't have to have a background in STEM. Certainly it's for scientists and engineers as well as others, but we need people who are thinking about startups. We need people who are thinking about law and policy in these areas. It's going to help the STEM worker tremendously. You're going to be the pioneers of what's going to happen on the moon and in other space exploration. And the reason that we're doing this, and I'm going to share a little bit about my own story, is, you know, I grew up and didn't have a lot of guidance. I didn't have direction in terms of what I wanted to do with my career, whether I could do well in STEM or not. It seemed like it was out of reach. And I had a few people who opened doors for me, and I found applied physics. And in that find, if you will, everything changed. It was like I now knew what I wanted to do with my life, and that was a profound experience. And what we're here to do is to tell you space is no longer out of reach. This is within your grasp. You can pursue a career in space if you so choose. You can apply your talents in this amazing field that's going through this transformation. So Carrie, Michelle, thank you very much for having the opportunity to share a story. And Sherry, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, David. And Carrie and Michelle, I mean, you all have kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about now in terms of opportunities and just this growing, opening, you know, horizon that we have beyond Earth. So next slide, please. So the Milo Mission Academy is different in a lot of ways, and this is something we pioneered in the U.S. With a NASA program as the sponsor. And we've had now 6 years of operations. We're coming up on our 10,000th student that has gone through this program. And again, it's not just a kind of hear about things and take notes and listen to people talking on the screen. That's not us. We are all about immersion. And even in a virtual world, we really have created a way for you to understand, practice, and experience the professional aspects of what it's like to work in the exploration ecosystem. So the Milo Mission Academy is our version of the NASA Space Academy that we are taking to countries that are really interested in expanding their workforce and having the opportunity to be thinking and entering the space economy. So what we're doing, and you see this underlined in this text here, is we are professionalizing you. We are giving you the operational aspects of what it's like to do things in a different environment, a space environment. And that's really what we're set up. So we're aligning with the Artemis Accords, the kinds of things that they're planning to do on the moon. We want you to have the relevancy and understand how things work in exploration and be very in tune with all the jargon and all the kinds of things you're going to be doing working in multidisciplinary teams. Next slide. So our mission, even though it's virtual, we really create a culture and connectivity with people. This is a team-based activity. This is, people always say it in the US, oh my gosh, a school team, I hate those kinds of things, because it's within a school culture, it's a little bit different sometimes in terms of the experience that people have, but this is a professional team. We are actually working on the professional side of how things work. And that's the thing that we really want you to understand. All the things we're going to be doing are just like you would be on an operational team and within the professional world. So as David mentioned, there's all kinds of people that will be coming into this academy with all different experiences, whether you're, just starting out in your journey, in your educational journey, or if you're a career professional already in the field. We want to give you a way that you can connect and understand and gain traction in terms of becoming operational within these types of things. So even if you're not a STEM degree, say you're working in law or other kinds of things, we still want you, and it's very beneficial for you to experience what it's going to be in terms of the challenges, what it's like in space, the kinds of questions people are having to ask. We give you projects that are not going to be something you just Google and write down. We're going to give you things you have to think about and create, because every single team will have a different set of what they're deciding to do. This is not a cookie cutter thing at all. And that's part of what we're helping to do. We talk about the soft skills, kind of the things that Carrie talked about: teamwork, collaboration, communication, working with data, problem solving, innovation. Those are all the top skills that people really want in terms of workability within the professional side of things. And so within the team environment, you're going to be practicing and actually honing your skills really well within this collaboration that you're going to be doing. It's not a collaboration you're going to go in with a bunch of friends and it's just going to be your own little team thing. This is going to be with people you don't know. We're going to mix the teams up. We want you to be just like you'd walk into your first day of work. You're not going to work with all of your friends. We need you to actually start to make that transition and really understand what it's going to be like working with people you don't know, figuring out how to bring that team together and whose strengths and who's going to, bring all these different levels of ideas from everybody's different backgrounds to make the optimal project finished out. So these are the things that we practice in our NASA program that we're bringing also to the Milo Institute Academy. So this just gives you an idea. We meet virtually every week. We have a 90-minute session with special speakers that we're bringing in that will give you aspects of exploration and or the lunar environment and help you understand the kinds of hard things you're going to be doing. Space is hard, and we want you to really feel and understand and really embrace that. And then we'll have off in parallel time, you're going to be setting up team meetings. You're going to be working on a project that we're going to announce in week 2, just to give you again, operational thing for getting something done to deliver at the end of the academy. So we'll have the 12 sessions where you're going to have the speakers coming in and helping you understand things. You'll have Q&A time with them in those live sessions. And then you'll be setting up your team time, and you will be actually creating your mission concept and actually really laying that out granularly in terms of how it's going to be operational. And that's the kind of thing, again, no matter what your experience and no matter what your degree is going to be in or what your end goal is for your career, this is going to give you practice and perspective that is going to be really honed to the space experience. Now, I say that, but all of the things that we're giving you, those foundational communication, collaboration, all the things that I mentioned before are transferable across any sector. Those are basic, really high in demand workforce development types of foundational skills. So everything you're practicing here will also have basis for what you could do in terms of on Earth. Okay, next slide, please. So again, just the heritage of where this comes from, our current program we do in the US. We have over 935 colleges and universities across the US. 278 of those are community 2-year and technical colleges. We have a really broad spectrum of who's in the academy. These are not traditional STEM participants. We really found that we wanted to make it to where it could be STEM for all. So what you're seeing here is a lot more reflective of the population within the US, and we really want to take down the barriers to where everybody feels like they belong in this. And that we work within our teaming cultures and everything else that you're going to be experiencing to say the more variety, the better the answers are going to be. That's really what research shows. And over 90% of the people that start with us end the academy. So this is not something that they're feeling like, oh, this isn't really worthwhile. People are really seeing the relevance, and they really want to finish out and finish strong, because your career currency, your sweat equity that you're putting into this, that's going to give you that hireability and that value in terms of the people that are looking for the next generation of what we're going to be doing in space. Next slide, please. So, like I said, the live sessions, if you have to miss a live session or there's a schedule conflict, we do record them. But the real, the real sweet spot is going to be being in those sessions. You're going to hear a lot of nuances you won't just hear on the recordings. The chat, everything that we're very interactive. This is not just a talking head kind of thing. It's a very, very fast-paced and interactive kind of presentations that we do. So I would really highly, get you to think about making sure you can block the time. And then you can always, if you have to miss one, you can write up the little narrative about what that academy was about and what you found was interesting and meaningful to you. And we do take roll. I'll be honest, we really want to understand who is there, and those narratives that you turn back in will take the place of your live presentation. But you do want to actually be at everyone. That's why we have such a large showing of people that are there every week. And it becomes really a very collaborative community that we get excited. You get to know each other. You're working with each other. And it's something that lives long beyond the academy itself. So this is just something, and again, we have speakers coming in that you will really love every week. Next slide, please. So we have speakers again that are people that are in the industry that have been doing this kind of work for many decades. And so Dr. Jim Bell has the cameras on two of the big rovers on Mars right now, for instance. Phil Christensen has infrared instruments flying all over the solar system. He's, again, these are things that we're very intimate with in terms of knowledge and workability and how hard things are and how things don't work. All those stories are really embedded within the people you're doing it. Dr. Jim Rice is basically, we call him Dr. Moon. He knows more about the moon, I think, and he helps with training astronauts and everything else. These are really amazing people. I've been on missions for 25 years. And so we're on the inside of what we're doing in terms of how we understand how things work is because we've been participants in this type of ecosystem. And our executive director, David is just, again, he has been the space ambassador all over the world. He's in Singapore right now, actually, as we're talking, just having signed an MOU with folks there that are going to be doing an academy, for instance. So all of us bring perspective and understanding, and we're all about questions. We're all about helping you, again, gain the kinds of attributes and experience that are going to help you go forward. And all the things we're teaching you, again, will have Earth types of ties as well. Space mining is becoming a big thing. We're looking at asteroids. We're looking at all kinds of things that have application in space. Having Earth experience and these kinds of things before that window, that first mission goes, that's something that's going to give you a lot more understanding and perspective than trying to just, for the first time, do an asteroid, for instance, and doing something there and being able to be successful. So these are the kinds of things we're going to help you understand. Next slide. So these are just some examples of the kinds of sessions that we're going to be covering. And again, it's not to teach you 101 kinds of things. We're going to give you examples, real world examples of the kinds of things and how they apply. It's going to be up to you and your team to translate and have what your particular concept is going to do and how it's going to work. And again, we like to take you end to end from back of the envelope idea to an actual technical document that's going to be something that you could turn into a space agency and have them say, wow, this is really good. And you all hit, the important points, and this is something we would want to take and make operational. That's how close it is. That's how we've followed exactly the way exploration works, to where you're going to be extremely knowledgeable in terms of how all of these things work. You're going to understand how engineers talk and how scientists talk and how, you know, all the people in between that are all the glue of how these teams are going to actually come together. You have to learn each other's styles and words and drivers and all those things. And that's what multidisciplinary teaming will do. And so, again, these are all really interesting kinds of things to have understanding of. And this is where we bring you into that environment. Next slide, please. So, like I said before, about 2 weeks in, you'll get to know what it is you're going to be doing and where on the lunar surface your team should be focusing. We're going to give you operation within a teaming tool that's a professional tool that NASA and the space community use. We'll give you training on that to where you're going to be able to go and look at the sites that you're going to be considering in terms of the kinds of operations and science that you want to do. And these are the kinds of things, again, this is not just fake stuff. This is really grounded in the kinds of endeavors that the space community has already in going to the moon and doing the kinds of efforts they're going to be doing with science and then operations. Next slide. So the mission design, that's what your technical document is going to be doing. And so all of the people, all the participants, not just students, but the career professionals, everybody will be really working together to look at the kinds of effort it's going to take, what kind of your payload you're going to put together, the kinds of science you're going to do that's going to drive what that payload is, what that operation will look like, and all the nuances. What risks are you going to be up against? What kind of things are the things you need to think about in terms of viability? And again, the moon is not an easy place in terms of operations. The temperatures are incredibly challenging for mechanical things, for instance. These are all the kinds of things you're going to learn about, but you're going to work within your team. And you'll have mentors, you'll have subject matter experts, you'll have technical advisors, you'll have all of those people within the cadre of what your team can access. It's not that you come to us and want the answer. We're going to help you understand how to distill that answer and again, gain the knowledge and be the ones that have the traction going forward. Next slide, please. So the design review is going to be the document that you're going to be it's like a preliminary design review. It's where you come up with an idea, you understand the science drives the design. That's one of the things that we talk about all the time. You're going to have to really understand the science that you want to gain to be able to then design everything else. And so you're going to create that document. We'll give you the outline. We'll help you understand what goes in each section. And as you design your unique team project, that's what you're going to use. And again, we give you a lot of help access to where you're not stuck. And we have mentors that will be embedded into your teams that will also be that help line that's going to be accessible for you. Next slide. And I'll tell you, just the design documents, the preliminary design reviews we use in the space program, I show those to NASA all the time. And they're just jaw dropped in terms of the where you all are coming from, kind of from that beginning in emerging space workforce. They look at the quality and the content that you all are designing, and they are just off the charts excited about what's coming up within the talent pipeline. So this is, again, we're designing this because we know how NASA works and what they need, and you all are dialed right into the space needs of what your Australia and others are going to need. You're going to be talking the same language, doing the same things. And a lot of our people are walk-ons when it comes to the space industry now. They're getting hired like crazy, and they already understand how things work, which is a huge. We had one NASA center tell us what our students learn in 12 weeks saves them 3 years of onboarding at their NASA center. So this is the kind of thing that we want to give you, that accelerator. So we have skill modules that you can do asynchronously, that you'll have access to, that you can go in and you'll earn badges that will go on your certificate at the end for all the badges you actually work and the modules that you complete. So this is something else. If you don't know what these things are, you can do a deeper dive with these skill modules. And they're something that will, again, give you more access to content and learning on your own. Okay, next slide. So we're partners with Siemens, which is a worldwide company in software, and they have one of the best types of CAD. So it's something that you can learn through us. It doesn't matter if you have it at your school or have access to it. It's, again, we're taking down barriers, and you will have the capability, if you want to go all the way to professional certification, you can learn that through our program. So you'll have the chance to actually learn NX, and this is something that a lot of the space companies use. And it's something, again, that will give you more viability, even if you're a scientist. We have a lot of people that are in the science field or in other fields other than engineering, and going through a design review, being the science person that's talking to the engineers about the kind of things you want to be able to do in science capture and what's that going to take, and having that collaborative space, even within being able to use a CAD, computer aided design, to be able to figure out how it's supposed to look and how big it needs to be, or what the payload needs to actually fit together, all those things. If you're not an engineer, it gives you such more operational capability and hireability, because you can understand the other side of how you actually optimize that project. And so whether it's policy, whether it's law, whether it's, any of the other kinds of the ecosystem skill sets that Carrie talked about, all the different kinds of things that the space industry is going to need to really backbone the capability, understanding how missions work from an experience like this will make you better in those fields as well. So that's another thing that's really going to give you the operational capability that's really different from a lot of other kinds of experiences. Next slide, please. So this is just our timeline. As Michelle talked about it, we're going to actually begin on March 21st. And we have the timelines that we've been advertising in the application in terms of the start times and when we're meeting live. And then the program will end June 27th. And so, and then we will also be sending out certificates electronically to everyone. So you'll have, again, a lot of our people use their preliminary design review or the design review document in interviews. When they find out the kinds of things you've done, that's all they want to talk about. They just throw the other questions out the window, and they just want to talk about, oh my gosh, tell me about what you did. What was your role? What did your team do? And your certificate, again, is something that you can also show to say, here's all my skill badges of the things that we actually went over, and here's the things we did, and here's the kinds of competencies I've gained. Those kinds of things are always talked about in interviews with the people that have been through our program. Next slide. So our tagline is, you belong here. If you have any kind of doubt, like, oh my gosh, this sounds like it's totally out of my league, or you just put that imposter syndrome into a closet and you lock the door, and you just have to understand and own that you belong in this environment. The teams are everyone starts out like, oh my goodness, how could I ever do this? 90% completion rate, because they really see that they can do this, and you will gain knowledge and confidence and skill sets and workability that, again, will get you to some of those horizons beyond Earth. And this is a huge opening horizon in terms of this new space, opportunities emerging. And like David said, it's across the board, whether it's supply chain, whether it's entrepreneurial, whether it's actually working and getting to the next place. All those things are within grasp within your career horizon. I'm excited to say. So with that, I'll stop and we can take questions.
Right,
so I see
thanks.
some in the chat.
Yeah, there's quite a few here. I might just go to the top. Upon successful completion of the internship, do we also get a certificate potentially eligible for credit transfer for a university, i.e. to Master of Systems Engineering? I think, Sherry, you've already mentioned the certificate. Do you want to mention anything else about that?
So we've had students. We don't, because we're across 935 colleges and universities in the U.S., trying to get to where every single thing aligns with every single college, academic requirements is something that we didn't take on. So you can talk to your university if you want to show them the quality of the work, how much time you spent, You know, and we also ask for people to give us reports on, you know, self-reporting how much time that they're spending on each of these things, like skill modules, for instance, and other things, time within the team. That's something that you can a lot of times get, you know, your senior credits and an elective kind of thing, for an immersive experience. It's like an internship experience. So you'd have to negotiate that with your individual college or university if you want to try that. We have had people be successful, but that's something that you will have to work, and showing them the breadth of work, the span of time, and how many hours you accrued within that experience. That would be my best approach.
And just on that, RMIT have one of the course supervisor who is actually helping people use this course as a credit for their work and place learning. But the Engineers Australia have also said that, yeah, really it is a university by university basis. The guys at the TAFEs are creating, you know, different approaches as well. So probably, as Sherry said, important to talk to your supervisor, and if they want to talk to the academy, then feel free if there's further detail that they're required to be able to do that. This is our first academy, so, you know, our first step was to get this up and going, and absolutely we recognise the queries that everyone has around credits. So yeah, keep an open mind here.
I would also encourage everybody to keep a log if you're interested in credit, just making sure that you can actually show what was done during the hours that you were working with your team or individually, or skill badges. That's going to give you more credibility in terms of saying that you put in the hours needed to actually accrue some of the kinds of credit hours that may be, you know, available. So anyway, go ahead, Michelle. I'm sorry.
Cool. No, that's great. It's a really important point. There's a few people have asked that question. So I think the other question here is just around application for a sponsored place. So in the registration form itself on the website, please make sure that you state the university or TAFE that you are studying at. If you are still a student, the sponsorships that we have been offered by specific universities in some cases, but also the Australian Space Agency is keen to support Australian students. So please make sure that you place that in your registration. If you've already submitted and now would like to ask for support, please just email through to the Milo Mission Academy website. There's a few questions we'll ask you, mainly around the requirement for the support, but also how will you give back to the community as a result of getting this. Do want to say that there are a number of people who've already applied for this. We haven't come back to everyone. Our intention is to do that shortly. We're trying to make sure that we can allocate as many of the places from the different universities and the agency across people. So yeah, you can be accepted, you know, without support. There is a $550 fee, and there is a link that we're sending out as you're accepted for payment to that. Sorry, just on the financial support, you can ask for 25, 50, 75, 100%. So feel free to kind of tailor to what it is that you need. David, there's a question for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about the possibilities of fashion intersecting with space?
Yeah, you bet. So the specific project that I mentioned, I'll encourage you to Google Prada and Axiom spacesuits. Axiom is the company that has a contract actually to develop the next generation of spacesuits for the Artemis astronauts. But I want to give you sort of a vision for the future. NASA is helping several companies with to build space stations. Now, these are going to be commercial space stations. These are not going to be strictly for science, although there will be science done on the space stations. So imagine, and in fact, there'll be space tourism. You will have a chance to actually go to a space station. So here's sort of an interesting question. What do you wear to dinner on a space station? Surely it's going to be different than what you wore on ground, right? And so that's the kind of future that you can expect, and you can participate in the creation of the next generation of space fashion, because surely it's going to be a thing. I had an interesting conversation as well with a gentleman in Ecuador, and he said, I don't think that my field actually is going to be necessary in space. And I asked what it was, and he said, well, I'm interested in music. And so I challenged him. I said, imagine if you're one of these space tourists, you're going to end up on the nose of a rocket, and you're going to be strapped into a seat, and you're going to be watching the countdown as you get ready to launch off of Earth and go into orbit and connect with the space station. So what is your playlist? What songs do you want to have playing when that thing reaches zero and the rocket lights up? These are the kinds of things that are, real. These are actually within the next few years. You can look into Starlab. They've partnered with Hilton to create crew quarters that are more comfortable. And there's actually predictions of more than 3 commercial space stations in the next 10 years. So lots of opportunities. I hope that answers your question.
Can I add a little bit to that too, if I may?
Sure.
They've actually been leading fashion designers like Miyazaki, who have already looked at things like literally designing wear for a space station. I mean, Miyazaki even designed the most wonderful, given that I know we've just passed Valentine's Day, the most wonderful 0G wedding dress. So, there will be things that will occur in space, or, activities we expect on the space stations that people will want to have suitable clothing for. So certainly if this is an area you're interested in. Also, too, I might point out in the music area, there are people who've already looked at things like designing musical instruments for use in space. In addition to and there are people already looking at things, professional musicians looking at designing music for space or composing music for space. Some people may not be aware that, oh Lord, and his name's just gone out of my head, Mark Newsom, quite well known as both an industrial and a designer of furniture and other areas like that. He actually designed the couches on the Virgin Galactic spacecraft. So, if you're a designer in various areas, there's a lot of opportunities for, for future employment in the space sector. Sorry, David.
No, that's great, Carrie. I just wanted to add to that. What's kind of interesting, and I love the comment about musicians and composing music, but music propagates in the air, and it is affected by the density of the air. So when you go into space, you're now going to be in potentially different quantities of density of the air, which is going to affect the sound. So you have new domains in which you can be creative in actually using the space environment to affect how the music sounds. Anyway, it's a wonderful topic.
Thank you. We've got around 10 minutes left, so
I see another question from Graham. So, I'm past my degree quite a bit, and Graham, I don't know, again, are you within 10 years of graduation? And if not, then you should just let us know really what your situation is, and in terms of an application, so we could take that into consideration too, and we could work with Michelle and Carrie to see what we could do if that would work out. Okay, so I saw that in the Q&A. I just wanted to make sure that we caught you as well.
I missed that. And we are open to people, up to 10 years out but if you're kind of beyond that, just please reach out and so we can talk further. I think we recognise that many people 5 or 10 years out wouldn't have seen a space industry, even possible. And so that's why we're making sure that this is an opportunity for those that have already, finished their qualifications. So there's one here from Ronnie. Are there any immediate expectations for participants who have completed the program other than exploring work opportunities and helping address skills shortages?
I can take part of that too, Michelle, and then you can add into it if you want. Yeah. So what we were hoping to do is connect with Australia businesses and others that are interested within the ecosystem of where Carrie and Michelle are, to actually be posting opportunities and jobs that are opening and things to where we can give you at least a relevant kind of depot of where to go look to see where opportunities are that are within this area that you could apply to. And then we're always open to having you, connect with us and be able to talk about ways that you can maybe become more in tune with some of the opportunities that are opening, things that might be able to be something that would help you again gain traction and get hired. We've been doing that with our students now as we speak with the LaSpace side, and we're seeing a lot of success in terms of where they're going after our experience and graduation. So hopefully that helps. And
Yeah,
Michelle,
I think,
Gary?
yeah, I think the SIA, so Space Industry Association of Australia, SIAA, have got a jobs board. So I'd certainly recommend that people look to that. So the intention is that we try to get their links on the Arose website, on the Milo Mission Academy website. Space Connect is always a great resource if you want to, sign up to those newsletters. Many companies featured there very regularly. Also sign up to the Australian Space Agency, and Arose has a number of space companies in our membership base. So feel free also to look at the job boards for each of those organisations. And our intention is to collate that set of jobs or links to the different companies on the Arose and Milo Mission Academy website. So there are a number of places already. Otherwise, feel free just to kind of reach out if it's a specific area or company or capability that you're looking at applying. Please reach out. We'll do what we can to help direct as well.
I'd also suggest too you have a look at keep an eye on the Australian Public Service jobs website as well. Positions that come up in the agency are advertised there. Positions in other organisations like CSIRO and different government departments that are space related in different ways, they'll be advertised there as well. Some of you, particularly recent graduates or soon to graduate, may even be interested in having a look at the Australian Public Service Graduate Program that offers a wide range of placements within the public service, and at different times we've had people placed within the Space Agency and again other departments that have space related functions. So don't ignore the possibilities in the public sector as well.
So
Question there on astrophysics, or did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to add to that. We've got students right now that are in Arla Space, and also we have ASU courses called SpaceWorks at Arizona State, where I'm headquartered. And it's like, I'm going to be a theoretical astrophysicist. Why should I come and learn how to, operate an instrument or, learn CAD or something like that? And what we tell them is a lot of the people that are doing theoretical things, or especially research, if you have the experience to where you, again, go into a team that's creating something to capture science, by being operational with those engineers and computer people and others, and being able to meld what it is you're trying to do in the science side with ways that you could measure that within instrumentation and payloads and operations within hard places. Those are the kinds of things that really upskill you in terms of viability to get research done. Because you're not going to just kind of go to some place and say, I need to do this. Can you give me something that I can do that with? You're actually part of that team that's co-creating. And that's a very powerful thing that you can do within the science side of things. And some of our most, at least in our research lab, Phil Christensen, the one I mentioned that has the infrared instruments flying all over the solar system, he's had so many students, graduate students, that have come through his lab that have been operational on the engineering side, helping to co-create their things. And these are now the people that are emerging as leaders within the space industry, with a lot of the kind of capability that they're coming out with, having that hybrid experience. So that's the only experience that I could say of why that might be worthwhile in having that time, even though you're going into something like theoretical astrophysics. So Michelle and Carrie and David, you're welcome to add to that if you would like.
Okay.
The only thing that I would add is that, if you think about sort of validation of theoretical astrophysics, there's a lot of cool information coming from JWST And so understanding how instruments work, there's a lot of discussion around putting a telescope on the dark side of the moon where it had minimal interference. And so the future is going to be smaller spacecraft, maybe in some really interesting places like the far side of the moon, and validating some of our theories in astronomical physics. So the instrumentation part will be very valuable.
There is a
Yeah, I'd
question
actually
here.
just, I'm sorry, I was just going to say I'd actually add to that understanding of what kind of data you might be able to get from space instruments and how that can feed back into work in theoretical astrophysics could actually be quite a useful understanding to have.
That's great, Carrie. I agree. So there's a question?
Yeah, there's a statement here from Andy just around their experience in underground mining autonomy. I'm actually a mining engineer by background. I'm not from the space industry, but I've now been working here for a couple of years, and I completely agree with you that the background in autonomy, robotics, all has application in the space sector. Equally, many space companies are very keen to understand how do they get into the mining sector, and having that mining domain knowledge as well as your technical knowledge and autonomy, I think would bode very well. So yeah, happy to chat further. David or Sherry, do you want to add anything more to that?
I just think about, autonomy and robotics especially. There are so many ways that this is emerging of places we haven't even thought or applications we haven't thought about. So thinking about what you know now, and like they said, even a few years ago, we wouldn't have even imagined ourselves here. Things are changing so rapidly with AI, machine learning, all the kinds of things we're able to do with microsizing robotics and the applications that are really coming out. Those fields are really going to change the landscape very quickly, even more rapidly than anything we've had historically in the past. So being able to get operational within and understanding and what we call a growth mindset, being willing to embrace all the changes that are happening, and being willing to upskill. Micro-credentialing, certification, those are really going to be the future over and above a degree program. Whatever degree program is your end result, you're going to have the chance and again, be open to this, because that's going to make you the valuable employee that's willing to make those changes and not be afraid and stuck and sad that you can't do it all the same old way. This is a really going to be exciting, interesting career journey that you're going to be on, because it's going to be not static. It's going to be very evolutionary and really much more exciting.
Sherry, may I ask a question? It's a leading question. How do you view Mars as sort of the next domain?
I've been a Martian for 25 years, so in the Mars missions is where I've had a lot of experience. So, and we were just talking to one of the chief technologists at NASA Marshall yesterday, and what they're really seeing is the feed forward. All the things we're doing on the lunar surface are really feeding to not just the next moon above a planet, but the next planet, which is really, it's going to be a 1,200-day journey round trip for Mars exploration. So everything we're doing on the moon, which is only 3 days away, it's like camping in your backyard and you're testing out your camp stove and your tent and make sure everything works before you go do something really hard. And so that's kind of where we're doing. Moon is our practice, but we're also going to be establishing and really keeping that going. That's going to be not just a kind of stop over and abandon. It's going to be something that's going to be really growing in the things. But Mars is going to be really interesting. If you watch the movie The Martian, and maybe that's homework sometime for you. There's a lot of good moon movies too. So, but that was as close to what we imagine human exploration to the next planet will be like. Andy Weir, who wrote the book The Martian, sat at Jet Propulsion Laboratory and NASA centers and really talked deeply with what the plans are. We've been looking at Mars landing sites for next 6 years for humans now, and we're getting close to deciding where that's going to be. So this is not science fiction anymore. Everything you're doing is going to be evolving into the next thing. And then there's asteroids to mine, and there's all kinds of different things that are really within play now. That's going to be something that in your future you will see. You will live to see this. And so, again, do you want to be part of that leading edge? Do you want to, take the time to kind of say, I'm in, and let's see what we can do? That's the attitude that we have within our academies. And it's transformational in terms of the way you'll look at your future. It's really great.
Always inspiring here for you, Sherry. One last question here from Power. There's a question here around long-term moon mission. I'll let someone else kind of talk to this a bit more about the future sustainable presence, but I do want to highlight that there's a company right here in Perth who have built a facility called Sparks, a space AI automation robotics complex. They are supporting the Intuitive Machines mission to the moon. This was supposed to launch yesterday. The launch was delayed. That will be landing, in a week or so. They'll be supported out of Perth CBD. So pretty exciting to think that this is happening today in Australia, the support of these lunar missions. And there's been a number of people go to the moon over the last year, or attempt to land on the moon, with the Indian rover being a really great example, ISRO. But yeah, do you want to add anything else to the long-term presence there, David or Sherry or Kerry?
Well, do you want to go? I was going to say, we were just talking about this again yesterday with some of our NASA experts on our academy here in the U.S. And, the moon is within reach. Again, budgets, as everything, will drive whether things are available to go or not. But we're hoping, between 2000 and around 26, we'll have humans back in terms of on the moon for another human mission, at least on the NASA side. And those are kind of fuzzy lines, depending on funding. But I think the capability is getting much closer, and the practice and the kinds of things we're learning at the space station, and now really recognizing, how do we do some of these things. The good news is we're only 3 days away. We can get, rescue missions or supply ships and things like that close in. So it's not as risky as it is going much deeper into space. But I think the long term, is going to be dependent on, there's a lot of countries going to the moon right now. It's not just NASA. There's a lot of been successful landings, India, JAXA, from Japan, and the others that are really getting good at this, to where we are humanity leaving this planet. And so those kinds of things, I think, are kind of in flux, but they will become more and more synergistic and cooperative, and you're going to see a lot more traction in the very near future.
And let's not forget that Australia is actually working to develop a small rover, which will be going to the moon, and that we hope will be demonstrating our capabilities in remote operations, that this is an area that we really believe we can parlay our experience from the mining industry in remote operations to being able to operate equipment of various types on the moon, in space, hopefully eventually on Mars. So, this is a very important and exciting area that Australia can be providing a service into the space sector. Michelle, you might even want to say a word or two about that.
And I think I mentioned briefly at the beginning, but Pamela Melroy, the Deputy Administrator of NASA, was the one that saw the remote operations capability here, largely in West Australia in the mining sector, pioneered by Rio Tinto and BHP, and she was the one that said we should set ourselves up to be able to take these expertise to the moon. That was what defined Australia's role in the Artemis Accord. Right now, designing that lunar rover that will be on the moon before the end of the decade. We're designing that right now. So, it's not a stretch. So when you consider the academy, you consider that the opportunities are here to work as well. But we are well over now.
Point out something.
Yeah, you go.
To keep this brief, something very interesting and insightful that Power mentioned is the regolith. And I think this is a great opportunity to mention that there's going to be things that we're going to have to figure out that we haven't even, thought of yet. So you're exactly right about the ionized dust. it's electrostatic, so it sticks to everything.
Mhm.
And there's no wind on the moon, so it can't dull the edges, so it's sharp. So you've got sharp stuff that sticks to everything. That's just a recipe for a challenge, and therefore an opportunity for clever people to figure out good solutions.
Nice little
Back to you, Jen.
historical note on that too. That discovery was actually made by an Australian scientist working in the US back in the late 60s and early 70s, who had little dust detectors on 3 Apollo missions. So they actually landed on the moon, and it was their data that actually helped NASA to understand that aspect of the challenges created by space dust.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think we should close here. The email is out there. Please make sure that you email if there are any other questions that you have and you weren't able to ask today. Please follow the Milo Space Science Institute website, the Australian Space Agency, and AROSE, just as 3. There's a number of sponsors in the Academy. Please register if this is of interest to you. Ask questions if you still want to know more. And yeah, hopefully look forward to seeing you online on the 21st of March.
Remember, you belong here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. See you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.